What's going on? It's Matt back with more information that I found about the Christchurch incident here. We're going to get started with some of the more obvious stuff, but still things that I want to look into here. As we can predict, the media is going to be pressing the gun issue, as they always do when something like this happens. So right off the bat, we do see that New Zealand Prime Minister is promising to tighten gun laws. They say in principle to tighten gun control laws. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said Monday, promising the changes will make the country safer. Okay, that's usually what they're going to say. General narrative that we can expect. He has exposed a range of weaknesses in New Zealand's gun laws. So down here they go into saying, but according to New Zealand police data, virtually everyone who applies for a firearm license gets it. Once applicants have that license, powerful weapons are available to them. Sniper rifles and armor-piercing bullets are available to anyone with an A category license. Okay, so they talk about sniper rifles, whatever that's supposed to mean. I guess we're in a video game. And then armor-piercing bullets. Like a sniper rifle, you can put a scope on a number of different kind of rifles. I don't know what a sniper rifle is. They're making it sound like, oh, a sniper, like a sniper in the military. But I mean, people buy rifles to hunt and stuff. I mean, that's usually what you're buying a rifle for. You're not even going to defend your home with a rifle in most cases. People buy handguns and shotguns for that. Rifles are usually either people who are hunting, people who are really prepper, worried about the government, or just like to shoot guns. I mean, there's plenty of people that just like to have guns like that and go to the shooting range and shoot it. I mean, shooting guns is fun. It's a fun thing. I'm trying to sound like a gun enthusiast here, but I am a strong proponent of the Second Amendment. I think it's one of the most important rights in human history, along with freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, pursuit of happiness, and the right to own guns. Because if you don't have the right to own guns, how are you going to stop someone from coming and taking those freedoms away from you? I mean, that's my opinion here. Like I said before, I'm not here to preach to you guys. But, these are my beliefs, and that's why I feel that way. And a lot of this stuff is very veiled. And, they say stuff like sniper rifles to make it sound scary. Armor-piercing bullets. I don't really know what they mean by armor-piercing bullets. There are bullets that are designed to pierce. But it's not like armor-piercing. They're making it sound like warfare stuff. The stuff they're describing is very standard ammunition that's been around forever, since modern, weaponry. So they talk about focus on semi-automatic weapons. Okay, semi-automatic. If you really don't know what that means, semi-automatic just means you pull the trigger and a bullet comes out when you pull the trigger. So everything basically that's not a revolver or a machine gun, all right? If you don't have like a 6-shooter, little spinny with the spinning cartridge holder, the revolver, if you don't have one of those, like a regular handgun pistol, standard like a Glock or something, that's a semi-automatic weapon. So pretty much every single weapon anyone owns, shotgun, rifle, pistol, handgun, anything except a rifle or a revolver or weapons that you're basically not allowed to have unless you have a very specific license in America and probably other countries. But automatic weapons are not easily available to people in most places, and I'm assuming not New Zealand. So they're talking about focusing on semi-automatic weapons. Again, this is like veiled speech. This means all weapons that people own, unless you have a revolver, which is already, they're limited to 7 shots already, which is basically a revolver, except an easier to load revolver because you have, the magazines that you can reload and stuff. Now, I think that's mostly it to really talk about here. I mean, this is from freaking NPR, so, we're going on mainstream sites because that's where you're going to find the narrative. That's what I think is important here. Unless it's relevant information, which we'll go over in this episode as well, because there is some relevant information that the media is not talking about. But we're going to go ahead and move on here to this article, No Bail for Man Sharing a New Zealand Shooting Video. Okay, so if you haven't heard, you can get up to 10 years, or up to 14 years, in prison in New Zealand for owning a copy of the video of the shooting. So this basically kid, an 18-year-old, had the video and was sharing it online, I believe. So he's already got the name suppression, which I guess they do in New Zealand to keep people from talking about it until he's charged. And so we don't know exactly who it is, but I believe it is a male. It just says New Zealander, but I think it was confirmed. Yeah, the man. So he cannot be named, was not involved in the attack in Christchurch allegedly carried out by the Australian. He wasn't, they say he wasn't involved. It was just a kid sharing it online. They're basically giving him no bail, can't pay his way out of it just for sharing a video. I mean, this kind of stuff is insane. This is literally very scary that they're just putting people in prison for sharing information. And I know, outside of America, there isn't, full free speech like maybe a lot of people living in America are used to. But even still, this seems, for a European country, I know, New Zealand, but a European-based nation, Western cultured nation, 14 years in prison for sharing a video. That's just, obviously something's going on here. Why? Why would they? Obviously, it's violent. I mean, I guess it's they don't want people sharing snuff films and stuff like this, but just seems an 18-year-old kid, probably his first time charged. I don't see it saying, I guess they're not going to reference his past criminal history, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's never done anything in his life, shared this video, and they're going to really throw him in prison, no bail. Like, mass murderers get no bail, no bail for sharing a video. I mean, in America, that's insane. So, as I was actually rewatching my video from yesterday, I noticed that the ad for this article, and this article really goes into, this is a CNN article, or CCN, not CCNN, but CCN, but this is some real propaganda, like, I don't even know, but they're really trying to demonize memes here, and this is really kind of what I want to go into, because this goes on the other end of what I was talking about, how they're going to try to go for guns, and they're going to try to go for memes, because Disney's about to buy up Fox News, America's about to have a one-state media. Europe and the rest of the West basically already does have a one-state, like a single-party media as well. So you're basically going to have a worldwide single-party media, and now they're going to come for the internet. And by doing stuff like this, remember, lads, subscribe to PewDiePie. We need to talk about how domestic terrorists are created online. So we go in here talking about a bunch of stuff. Just heard the news. Vanilla bigotry, or how to groom. I don't even want to freaking read this because it's so dumb. They're trying to demonize PewDiePie right off the bat, where if you've seen this content, this was like a straight up joke. This is like a joke on the same level of like Monty Python joking, like goose stepping and pretending to be Nazis to make fun of Nazis. Like, this was a joke. It was nothing was even bad really about this. And I think they even referenced the death to Jews thing, which for his sake, he crossed, these are lines that you can't cross. The media doesn't let you speak basically freely and just make, off-color humor without demonizing you and trying to take all your revenue away or whatever. He did this to prove that the Fiverr thing was stupid and that he wanted to see what he could get someone to do. So I know, obviously it's off-color humor. I don't blame someone for being offended by it or saying that he took it too far. But the way the media portrayed it is that, he actually does believe this, but he doesn't believe this. This was just seeing how far he could push the Fiverr thing. How far will someone go for $5? So, people on the left are going to... There are so many angles to attack this from, too, as well, from the left. Because they're saying, look, he's taking these people. I don't remember where exactly they're from, but obviously they're from some sort of more of a rural native culture from some foreign country. They're not white. He's exploiting them to say some racist thing. So they're going to do, look how he's exploiting people of color to push a Nazi agenda. That's how they portrayed it, which if you at all pay attention to what was going on, it was completely off base and ridiculous, but that's what the media likes to do. They like to stir the pot. They like to get people crazy. They got a thing of Tucker Carlson here. Dems want to replace middle American voters, which, I mean, that's a really... Fox News is propaganda, first of all. Tucker Carlson, I think, can make good points at times, but he does still kind of, in my opinion, have a little bit of that, the way they kind of present it, sensationalist, like a sensationalized narrative, which I don't really like people doing, because it paints a wide brush across people and stuff like that. So Dems want to replace middle. This is like such a broad statement, and it's scary. You don't want to scare people with the news, but the mainstream media obviously does like to do that. But they're of course going to take this narrative and say, oh, look, here's another thing. This is propagandizing extremists, even though there's a lot of truth in this statement. Although the way it's worded, I wouldn't quite state it like that. I'd say it more like the Dems' focus is not on middle American voters, and they're more focused on appeasing these voters from abroad and minority classes. I think that's a more accurate statement, for whatever the reasons may be. I think it's just for simple voters, like voter farming. They just want to keep the Democratic platform is basically lots of handouts, lots of government assistance, lots of government dependence. So they just want a lot of government-dependent voters. But, this replace middle America, this is kind of the white replacement theory that we discussed the other day, or the great replacement theory that we discussed yesterday. So he goes on down here to talk about this. I actually have this photo down here. Let's bring that up. Where we have, if you don't condone, this is on 4chan, right after the shooting. And I noticed this when I was looking into stuff about the shooting. All of a sudden, there's all these people on 4chan who are like celebrating this, and there's times when they do this kind of stuff on 4chan. Like, for instance, we'll talk about Q-Anon later, and I'll kind of go into it. And I might just say, I'll just say they did something similar with Q-Anon, and we'll go into that when I talk about Q-Anon, because there's a story related to Q, and I know a lot of people who are interested in this also are interested in Q. And I think it has relevance to the Christchurch shooting as well. So we'll talk about that. But if we look at this picture here, you see this first post says, if you don't condone his actions, you don't belong here. Get the fuck out, you fake ass niggas and wannabes. If you can't stand your words when if you can't stand by your words when shit gets real, you deserve the bullet too, weakling. So this is, first of all, you deserve the bullet too. That's like I get in arguments with white nationalists and commies and socialists and anarcho-syndicalists and, libertarians, all sorts of people on the far ends of the spectrum. Not that I would say libertarians are on the far end, but they are, like, economically in certain ways. If you're a true libertarian, like anarcho-capitalist or something. But this, you deserve the bullet too, I see a lot. And I see it a lot from commies and anarcho-communists and anarcho-syndicalists. And those, you deserve the bullet. We'll feed them a bullet. They always like to use that kind of wording. And maybe neo-Nazis use that kind of wording too, but the thing is, if you can't stand by your words when shit gets real. Most of these people on 4chan are just like incel nerd assholes, like trolls who just try to push the envelope and say, really, none of these people want to kill people. Most people on the planet don't want to go out and kill people in cold blood. Yet here you see this guy calling people out. Then another person coming up and he says, the retard literally shot up a mosque. How retarded can you be? And it's like, okay, well, maybe this guy's coming out saying, what's your problem? The Jews started Islam to control brown people. The kikes run everything. He should have shot up a synagogue, stupid fuck. So now we see like some anti-Jew stuff, like, which is like, to be fair, all of this could be trolling just to be assholes. But I saw a lot of it, and I go on 4chan a lot because you're pretty much forced to go on like poll to find a lot of this stuff because they do a really good job of gathering information. And it's usually not this type of humor. And we can even go on poll later, and we can just look around and see right now, the kind of stuff people are talking about. And it's not this kind of stuff. I believe mods should contact Finnish authorities and inform them about the user and his pro-terrorist rhetorics. Okay, so this sounds more like someone who's usually on poll. Like, yeah, we do push the envelope. We do talk about some controversial stuff. I don't agree with a hell of a lot of the stuff they talk about on there, but they're usually not calling for violence. But, you know, you deserve the bullet too. This kind of stuff, lefties call for violence all the time like this. On the far ends, you go to the far circles of the Antifa type and, you know, that follow those sort of ideologies that associate with, you know, activism right now in the world. They say this statement all the time. Liberals get the bullet. Conservatives get the bullet. Okay, well, you'll get the bullet because you are some kind of bootlicking, whatever. They use that language, though. I'm just, like I said, I'm not quite as familiar with people on the far right because I'm more familiar with the memer breed of it and not the blood and soil. Like, I really can't stand those people, but I am slightly familiar with it, but I don't tend to even talk to those people as much because there's no point in arguing with those people at all. With commies, at least, maybe they're stupid and don't understand economics. But with those people, they're just pieces of shit. And yeah, I just try to avoid those kind of people. So we caught a few live ones, boys. I'm not sure what this is in reference to, so we won't talk about that necessarily. The amount of shills and pussies going all out on this attack is horrible, and now it's gone too far, are weak faggots, in my opinion. So now we see this attack is horrible, now it's gone too far. So obviously people here are going, even in 4chan, are saying this isn't wrong. But this guy's calling him out and making it seem, you know, are these legitimate people? Why were there so many like this? It could be organic. It could be that there's a lot of people on 4chan. They're just hiding out. They don't usually go that far on 4chan and go that racist and that disgusting and evil. But now they just decided to from the attack. And then let's look at some more pictures here. Here's one right here. She was literally shouting, "Help me," and he killed her in cold blood. Why are you celebrating this? What kind of sick monsters are you? And this, I'm going to have to thank Ed from The Outer Light, because I don't know where he got this image from, but it was on his show, so I just had to screen cap it just so I could reference it here. Help me. Gave her a quick death and no suffering. Sounds pretty decent to me. So now 2 people here, just like this part in the video, if you watched it, was particularly disturbing because she was screaming, "Help me, help me, help me." And it didn't sound fake at all. Didn't sound like acting. She sounded desperate. It was very disturbing. And then he kills her right in front of the camera, obviously. And then he does run her over with his car, or at least he drives over where she was laying. I don't know how. I mean, I can't imagine the tires didn't go right over her body. But so he sees, the more I see this, the happier it makes me. Oh, wow, all of a sudden she speaks English. Shooting her was funny, but the 4x4 over her was phenomenal. So we see all these kind of jokes here that aren't really jokes. They're just like, I like this. This is great. And it's like, I never got that impression of 4chan. I got the impression that there's a lot of, you know, misled people there that have extreme views that are more along kind of what I would think like conservative, kind of reverting back to, you know, a little bit of racism. But, you know, when you think of like your grandpa's racism, he's not like, yeah, go kill a bunch of Muslims, go kill a bunch of blacks. Like, this is beyond the pale of just disgusting. Like, either they're really in bad taste jokes or just LARPs, or these people are trying to kind of salt the fields or kind of poison the well and make this whole thing. Because there was an incident, like I said, with Q, where they did the same thing and kind of made Q look like a Nazi. If you remember at the very beginning, Q came out and was talking about the Saudi Arabia coup that went on and that it actually happened. And about the first few maybe weeks or so, a lot of the information seemed very legitimate and worth looking into. Then one day, Q came on, or someone pretending to be Q came on, talking about all this neo-Nazi shit, posting swastikas all over the place, and it was like a whole couple posts that were all this neo-Nazi stuff. And then after that, the Q stuff wasn't so reliable anymore, and from that point on, it started to get a little, in my opinion, less and less relevant. until it began getting to the point where I think it's legitimately a LARP trying to distract people, which is why I said before that I believe, at least personally, Q is a bit of a rabbit hole. Not that there's not valuable information to be found, but what Q is saying are lies. Q is lying to you. That's all I'm going to say. And I think people who have been following Q for a long time already know this, so they do take the information with a grain of salt, but I know there's a lot of people that just really want to believe what Q's telling them. And like I was saying in yesterday's video, that kind of stuff can be a rabbit hole. It can be a massive distraction, and it's kind of exactly what the people pulling the strings want you to do. They want you to look into stupid symbolism and codes, and it doesn't lead anywhere. So another interesting post also that I got off of Ed's video is this guy's response. Anybody unironically celebrating the shooting of innocent people is a sociopath/retard. The shooter is a sick fuck who never deserves to see the light of day again. I came to poll for free exchange of political ideas, not to be lumped in with some maniac right-wing murderer and added to fucking watch lists. Does anybody here think into the future? I'm legitimately worried. This has the potential to spiral out of control very quickly. It feels like we're crossing a Rubicon here. Senseless violence like this gives the government carte blanche to start cracking down on free speech and cranking up on surveillance on everybody. On other platforms, e.g. Facebook, Twitter, the mass of people are demanding more censorship and deplatforming of people with right-wing ideas, quote unquote. Other right-wing psychos like this guy will commit copycat crimes. Nutcases from other ethnic groups now have a motive to commit retaliatory atrocities. Right. This kind of sums up a lot of what I was thinking as well. You got to worry about now a lot of crazy people who are Muslims who want to kill Christians and whites or whatever. They're going to go want to commit terrorist attacks in reaction to this. And yeah, I mean, obviously that's exactly what this psycho wanted. But in the U.S., Donald Flump is going to eat a log of his own shit in 2020 and lose the election. So if you're a gun owner / enthusiast, prepare to get the government's hands crammed up your ass. Exactly. So yeah, this is what I would think someone from 4chan would say, because the people on 4chan are like, you go American conservatism mixed with some liberal ideas and mixed with a little bit of racism sometimes. A lot of people are completely reasonable on there, just looking for information, but a lot of like distasteful off-color humor, let's say, and then like kind of take that a little bit farther right. That's how 4chan is. But this guy was like crazy, let's go kill a bunch of people. You don't see that kind of crap on 4chan, and we can even hop on 4chan right now and just take a look at the stuff that they usually talk about on here. This is just like their catalog of things. So, welcome to Politically Incorrect. PewDiePie blown the fuck out. The whites phase is advanced training, teaching the art of army values. There's emphasis on personal courage. Okay. Sweden wants to import 10 million Muslim Chinese. Yes, you heard it right. 10 million. That sounds ridiculous, but I mean, that sounds like a crazy, if that's true. I don't know what truth is there to that, but so you can see he's blown his head off. They don't want Muslims to come in. Yellow Vest won. They're pro Yellow Vest, which I am too, because what's going on in France is abusing the people. How do we make marijuana the symbol of pole? Sex offender busted as drag queen who read books to children in city library. So, yeah, you see there's a right leaning, obviously, but they're not talking about let's kill Jews, let's kill Muslims. Why is there so much Asian women shilling on here? They're talking about Asian women shilling. Trump identifies Australia blocked poll. They're talking about how they blocked poll, which we'll get into later. Oh, guys, why the fuck can't I and many others access this board on our phone? Okay, that's completely unreal. Stop watching porn. This thread is to remind you that watching porn is conditioning you to be a useless, unproductive cuck. You cannot be red-pilled and fail to struggle against the temptation. I mean, this is actually a really common thing, the MGTOW movement, and not getting brainwashed by women and not, being so reliant on women. See a lot of that on poll. Replacement theory, sexist, explain yourselves. Racist doctrine spreads far-right circles. Why do you hate Islam when the ideal society is exactly like Islam? And before I hate Shitskins, Brennan, and a lot of you here have said you don't hate Poos or other ethnicities, but only Islam. Okay, so this what I think he's saying here, where he's saying the ideal pole society is exactly like Islam, because he's talking about the patriarchy, and there's a lot of people in MGTOW that feel that way as well. They feel like patriarchy is what the feminists complain about, that doesn't quite really exist, and actually kind of the opposite exists in the country, but they complain about the patriarchy. A lot of these people in these circles think that patriarchy they're talking about is actually how it should be. They don't think women should vote. They don't think women should have certain rights because women are emotional, blah, blah, blah. That's a thing that I see on here. Not killing Muslims, though. So, really, most of this is dumb, nerdy, let's see. Brenton Harrison. Brenton's middle name was Harrison. In other words, his initials were BHT, butylated hydroxy. Toluene or BHT is a faux preservative additive. So, memes. BHT memes. Okay, so he's talking about turning it into memes. Okay, they do that kind of stuff, like making a picture like this, where they're taking the Doom GUI and putting it over an image. I mean, completely distasteful, off color, but that's what these people in these circles do. They want to see how far can I take this humor, that where it's so politically incorrect. So weapons to Jewish mutts. A lot of Jewish stuff you'll see on here. Jewish mutts, all wars in the Middle East will end. They don't like Jews, a lot of people on here. Usually they're talking about how they manipulate, and how Jews are trying to take over white society. Again, there are a lot of ways that you can see how someone might be radicalized on here, but most of the stuff on Poll is more along nerdy, right-wing, but I wouldn't say extreme right, but farther than your typical right-wing stuff, and nerdy MGTOW-y stuff. So when you see these posts on here that are like, whoops, let's get back to them. Oh, I guess I got rid of them already. Those posts that I showed before, where I can bring some of them up right here. Not that one. Like stuff like this. She was initially shouting, "Help me," and killed her in cold blood. Why are you celebrating this? And then they come on, all these people respond saying how it was so great and it makes them so happy. And then you see stories like this. Australian PM pushes to tackle G20 internet extremism. And you see stories like New Zealand ISPs are blocking sites that do not remove Christchurch shooting video. 4chan, 8chan, and LiveLeak have been blocked. These 4chan, 8chan, and everything have been removed. Not removed, but blocked in New Zealand. And I believe Australia as well. I might be wrong about Australia, but right here we see in New Zealand. So they use those images of the hateful, disgusting things these things people are saying to block 4chan. Which anyone, if you know about looking how valuable 4chan is in gathering information, and they know how valuable 4chan is in gathering information. 4chan basically commits psyops on the mainstream media. They invented the white power hand symbol, the OK white power hand symbol. They invented the it's okay to be white campaign that people did. They do a number of push out memes, and that's why I think that this could go either way, but the meme of going and killing a bunch of people is not the same thing as it's okay to be white. Like, there's actual humor in it's okay to be white because of the way the media reacted and the way they wanted the media to react. But this is like, in my opinion, again, these are my thoughts, it seems like some sort of intelligence operation where we're doing a copycat of what 4chan is, sloppily, where they don't really understand how 4chan works, but they're going to insert memes so that people who also don't quite understand how 4chan works thinks that it's right in line with the ideologies and just what you see on 4chan. So they're copycatting these kind of 4chan LARPs, but instead it's a mass shooting. Instead of just pulling like a prank on the mainstream media and getting people to believe that the OK sign is racist, they're trying to make it look like 4chan people are going out and killing Muslims as some sort of LARP. So it's just really fishy to me, especially when you're seeing now all of a sudden Australian PM wants to push G20, which if you don't know what G20 is, this is a gathering of very influential people, world leaders. that they're going to talk about internet extremism. And they're going to push out free speech laws. I mean, Europe, at this point, if you live in Europe, and you have plans to get out of there, I'm sorry for you. I fear for you, and I pray for you, because it really does not look good for people over there, because they don't have gun rights. They don't have freedom of speech. The government is pretty much just trying to avoid a French situation right now, but France gets it. France gets it. That's why I don't believe that an agent, or I'm sorry, I didn't even mean to say agent, but I do believe he's an agent. But I find it hard to believe that this guy went to France, got radicalized by the Great Replacement movement, but he still thought that the French public wanted to vote for Macron and not Marine Le Pen. And that Macron won. I mean, when the ballots came out, they ripped the ballots for Le Pen. They tried to keep people from getting Le Pen ballots. They shipped out ballots with just Macron. Like, this was widely reported by people except the mainstream media. But if you went to alternative media, everyone knows this. So I find it very hard to believe someone on 4chan who knows all this stuff, where they know about the manipulation of the media, really believed that France didn't know about, I mean, France is burning itself right now because the people are aware of this kind of takeover. It's not quite the white replacement takeover over there in France, but it is the totalitarian government. The government taking too much control and taking too much control of the people's lives and their money. Really is what that protest is about. But and you got to remember, France was right there with America as far as being part of this revolution of getting the freedoms that we have now in modern society. France was a little bit sloppier with theirs. It went a little bit crazier, and it didn't really work. It ended in Napoleon, but they have that spirit in them. So the people of Europe know what's going on, but they're already repressed, and they don't have the advantages that we have here in America to freely speak, to go online and look up whatever we want and find it without fear of going to jail for 14 years just for spreading information or owning a video. It's like, give me a break. It's crazy. And also, yeah, they blocked 4chan, 8chan. So in New Zealand right now, the place where this is happening, the place where this potential psyop is going down, you cannot go on 4chan, 8chan, or Live Leak. And I believe Zero Hedge as well. Zero Hedge Live Leak blocks shares warrant of jail as New Zealand censors crackdown on mosque attack. So Zero Hedge is also blocked, which is just a news aggregation source with some more conspiratorial ideas. They're really like truth seekers. So yeah, if you're familiar, Zero Hedge, 4chan, these are good sources of information for people seeking truth, and that New Zealand is just blocking it, claiming that they're places of racism, and they're not. Zero Hedge definitely isn't, and 4chan isn't either. 4chan is just like Reddit on steroids. Like, it's not just poll. This is only one thread out of millions of threads on here. Like, this is just one group, one subpage. You can go to stuff about anything on 4chan. They blocked the whole site. So just because of essentially what I think were basically disinfo agents coming on to 4chan and posting a bunch of racist shit to show, look, we got to ban this stuff. So again, I said there was something in here about Q. Man suspected of killing Gambino mob boss drew Q-Anon symbol on his hand in court. So he drew the symbol on his hand. I believe it's can't really see that well, but apparently it says like MAGA forever, some stuff about MAGA. It's got a Q right here. So people, of course, are saying, Q, a guy's out here killing a mob boss. So you could think, oh, you said Q's bullshit, so who cares? Now you're saying Q's real, and this guy went and killed someone for Q. Well, this was right after. When did this happen? The night of March 13th. So this happened on March 13th. He did this Q thing. So it's a story right around the same time, a few days before the shooting, where it's someone going from a 4chan thread, Q, and looking into, that kind of stuff. And this guy apparently went out and killed someone. So they're going to spin that narrative again. This guy went online. He was looking into Q stuff. And then he went out and killed a mob boss because Q doesn't say go to kill people, but he talks about things, operations that are going on, how they're stopping pedophile rings and all this kind of stuff. So it seems like from a Q perspective, this guy was serious. And maybe he was. Maybe he did believe it when he killed a mob boss. But if you're following Q and believe Q, you're going to think this guy went out, killed a mob boss because he was in charge of some pedophile ring or something of that nature, some kind of scandalous campaign that he was running. So that's why this guy went out and killed him. And if you don't believe Q and you're on the mainstream media and you're believing the mainstream media's narrative, you're going to say, this is another 4chan extremist who was following some alt-right Q-Anon, So that's how I'm viewing this. Like, it's really... it's disinfo. A guy did die, though. I'm sure there was a reason why that guy died. I'm sure he owed someone money, someone important, someone whoever made this happen, but they used this guy as a patsy. And if you don't know what a patsy is, I mean, this is, what's his name? The guy who shot JFK, supposedly. That was a patsy. You get someone to do what you want. A lot of times they might be brainwashed in some way. I know that might sound crazy to you, but look into MK Ultra. Look into stuff like, if you like Stranger Things, that's basically about a alleged mind control program, Project Montauk, that you can look into. Operation Montauk. I don't remember what it's called. Operation Montauk, Project Montauk, for a bit more of the science fiction end of it. I mean, I don't know how much I believe that particular conspiracy theory, but it's also related to operations. I mean, the CIA was very much interested in mind control. It was one of the first things the CIA really focused on, was how to mind control people. So, and they have done mind control things. And there's enough confirmed information out there that you can find, and I'll go into on other episodes, I'm sure, when we do some deep dives into some older, not quite as relevant, but relevant as far as learning and knowing what kind of things the government has actually done in the past. And there was another thing I wanted to go over, which was this picture that I was coming across. Apparently this is a recent picture. I found this on Facebook getting passed around, of Macron while France burns, apparently looking like he's in the Alps or some sort of mountain, obviously some sort of mountain range, drinking wine with a bunch of probably other, lizard people. Not that I'm saying they're legitimately lizard people, but, Luciferian, disgusting, heartless, soulless, basically just bad people. Bad people that want to control you. Sitting up here in the Alps, drinking wine, laughing, and you could say, oh, that's an old picture, but the guy, when he posted it, and when we try to share it, it does this. Before you share this content, you might want to know that there's additional reporting from 20 minutes. So, this is very similar to what you would do, let's say you went on to YouTube or something, and you searched, let's say 9/11. You'll get something like this: 9/11 attacks, also called 9/11, or September 11th attacks, also called 9/11 attacks, series of airline hijackings and suicide attacks committed. So it's like, why are you looking into this? Here's the real story. What do you need to look into? We told you already. I mean, this kind of stuff, if you have half a brain, you should be like, what, why? Why are you doing this? Why are you acting like people crashed into a plane, the plane vaporized instantly, the buildings blew up and they collapsed? How are you acting like that's a solved story? Because that's an insanely hard thing to draw any conclusive evidence of. The only evidence they really have is some supposed videos of people coming out and saying, that's what happened. So why is it unreasonable for someone to look into something like this? Why is it unreasonable for, someone to share this photo? Why is that unreasonable? What's wrong here? Why they're preaching some sort of narrative, and it should strike you as odd. And the last thing I just really wanted to look into, because I don't have that much information on it, but it did strike me as curious. I remember hearing reporting on this earlier, and I don't remember exactly what. I remember hearing that someone was arrested, but they were let go because they were just walking around with a gun, but they weren't doing anything. They were just like an activist picking up their kid from school or something, but he had a gun. I don't know what kind of gun. I don't know if that's the gun. I can't really tell. It looks like it could possibly be like a gun with something, but it looks like it also be like just a piece of cloth. I don't know if it was a handgun, but I don't know why you'd be walking around with a gun if you had a gun this long. It does, I don't know, because what is this? What side's the front and what side's the back? Doesn't really look like a gun, but it is long. It could be a gun. This isn't a very good picture. But you notice he's not white. He looks like he's of Maori descent, which is the ethnic people of New Zealand. So that would throw a whole hammer in this whole white supremacist theory if he did in fact have anything to do with the shooting. But apparently he didn't. He was just walking around with a gun. But you can't find anything about that online now. Or you probably can if you dig really deep, but I had a very hard time being able to find anything about a suspect that was captured and released. So that's interesting. Again, this is just a picture I saw floating around on Facebook, but there's something definitely going on here. And like I said before, we're not going to be focusing on looking into the videos and trying to find out if bullets were disappearing or if the video was fake. We're done with the video. We know what happened. Some guy went in. Like I said, I watched the video. If you watched the video as well, you probably felt the same way. This was real. These were real shootings. The claims of being no blood and all that kind of stuff, that's not how guns work unless you hit a really blood-filled area of the body, like the head where the brain explodes, you know. But you shoot someone in the body, it's not going to spray blood everywhere on a crappy 240p video camera. The images of the mosque with the other mosque carpet, like the two different floors, there could be validity to that. But I don't think it's relevant. I think people still died, regardless. Like the way these types of incidents work is the people doing it like to kill people. They're obsessed with like rituals and sacrifices. They view these kind of things as the same thing, as some sort of twisted sacrifice. So people do die for sure. I wouldn't get distracted by whether or not the video is real. We know they're pushing an agenda. We know the focus is not, because the main thing to take away from this is the focus is not that there's a rise of white supremacists or that there's a rise of Muslim extremists or that any kind of citizens are to be feared. You should be afraid of what the government wants to do in reaction to this, is what you should be afraid of. Disney buying the media, Zero Hedge poll getting blocked in these countries, probably going to happen in Europe too. Like I'm calling it right now. After this G20 meeting, it's probably going to happen in Europe too. This is a very, I don't want to say scary time because I'm not here to push fear. You shouldn't be scared. I have my own reasons. I'm at least a brand of a Christian. I wouldn't say a standard Christian, but I believe what Christ taught was true and valid. And I do believe in a higher power, and I do believe in a soul. So I don't fear, and you shouldn't be afraid. You should be looking for solutions, and you should be looking to keep everyone else not being afraid. Because as long as no one's getting afraid, they can't do what they want to do. As long as people aren't fearing, they can't do what they want to do. The powers that be. So that's the most important thing to take away from that. So I'm going to keep looking into more interesting stuff. Like I said, I'm probably going to do some videos, doing some deep dives into some other relevant conspiracy theories. Just for fun, is once the news on this starts to die down a little bit, because I think there's still more to look into this, and I do think this is a priority, but those other things are very valuable to look into, to know the history of this, because the patterns are everywhere, and you can see the patterns over and over again. And that's important. It's important not to be a slave to their mind control, to their propaganda, and to know what's real and know what's fake, know what's suspicious, and to know when to question, which is pretty much all the time. Every single thing you see, you should question. It doesn't mean that everything you see is wrong or a lie, but that's how your mind should work, because we are free-thinking individuals. That's why I named this channel Sovereign Mind. We think on our own. We think things through. We don't let people tell us what we can't think. We don't let people tell us what we can't say, because that's how you push a narrative and keep the people like cattle. You know, that's what they're doing. They want to farm humans. But I could rant on this for hours and hours and hours. So I'm not going to keep going on. Until next time, guys, I'll see ya.